Hello everyone, welcome to EduExcite classes. In today's video, we will solve 062542 of Feb March 2020, that is paper 4 theory extended. Before going on to the solution part, please go through all the instructions given to you. Okay, fine. So let us start. The very first question. A rocket is launched vertically upward from the ground. The rocket travels with uniform acceleration from rest. After 8 seconds, the speed of the rocket is 120 meter per second. So in the question it is saying it is moving vertically upward, that is under the gravitational field, and the rocket travels with uniform acceleration from rest. After 8 seconds, the rocket is 120 meter per second. Now it is asking for the acceleration, and we know that acceleration is v minus u upon t, that is final velocity, which is 120 meter per second, initial velocity, that is 0, and the time taken is given 8 seconds. So just putting up the values, 120 divided by 8, you will get 15 meter per second square. That is the unit of acceleration. Do not forget to write the unit. Okay, now the next B part. Draw the graph of the motion of the rocket in first 8 seconds. Now in the question it is mentioned that it travels with uniform acceleration from rest. After 8 seconds, the speed of rocket is 120. So from rest it is having a uniform acceleration till 8 seconds, and the final velocity is 120. So this is speed versus time graph. So up to 8 seconds we have to draw. This is 5, this is 6, 7 and 8. This point is 8. So let us mark it. 6, 7 and 8. This is 8 seconds, and 120, that is, these are the division, that is 100, this is 110, this is 120, this is 30, this is 40 and this is 50. So 120 is this. So if you look at this, this is the point where it is having. So let us draw a straight line, because the acceleration is uniform given to us in the question. Okay, so that is the B first part. Now use the graph to determine the height of the rocket at 8 seconds. Now for the height we can say that is the displacement, and area under the curve gives us the height of the rocket at 8 seconds. So if I want to calculate the area up to 8 seconds, that will be the area of this triangle, and we know that area of a triangle is half, base is 8 and height is 120. So half base into height, if you calculate this value, you will get 480 meter. That is the height of the rocket at 8 seconds. Okay, so now the third question. From 8 second to 20th second, the rocket rises with increasing speed but with decreasing acceleration. This is very important statement, students. From 8 second to 20 second, the rocket rises with increasing speed is increasing, but with decreasing acceleration means your speed is increasing but at a decreasing rate. For example, if I say the initial acceleration which we get is 15 meter per second. So now after 8 second, after this 8 second, the speed is increasing but with decreasing. Now the acceleration will not remain 15, it will be lower than 15. Then after, let us say, 9 second or next second 10 second, it will reduce to 13 or 12 and so on. So after 8 seconds, the decreasing acceleration means the value of the acceleration is decreasing with respect to time. So now the acceleration is not constant. That is the main point, and it is decreasing. It is shown. So the rocket has a constant speed of less than, it is also mentioned here that when from time 20 to 25 second, the rocket has a constant speed of less than 200 meter per second. Sorry, draw the graph of this motion. So it is also given that at the end of 25th second, the speed of that rocket will not be equal to or greater than 200, it will be less than 200. So we are supposed to draw the graph for this motion. Now for the graph, if I want to draw the graph for this is 25, let us mark 20, this is 25, and it should be this, it should be less than 200, and it is decreasing. So the slope will continuously decrease, because the slope, we know that slope of v versus time, that is speed versus time, gives us the acceleration. So the slope will decrease because of decreasing acceleration. So I will draw the graph somewhat like this. It will be less than 200 meter per second. So it will be a decreasing acceleration. Okay. Now second question. The figure shows an athlete finishing the line in a race. As she crosses the finishing line, her speed is 100 meter per second and slows down to 4 meter per second. This is the first athlete, we can say, is finishing a line. As she crosses the finishing line, his speed decreases from 10 to 4 meter per second. The mass of the athlete is 71 kg. Calculate the impulse applied to her as she slows down. So we know that what do you mean by impulse. First of all, mass is also given to us, that is 71 kg. We have to calculate the impulse. So if I want to calculate the impulse, impulse is nothing but the change in momentum. Yes, that is the final momentum minus initial momentum, or we can say here we are supposed to calculate the impulse. So I can directly say the magnitude is final velocity, my final momentum minus initial momentum. I can take out the common, mass is the same, that is 71. Final velocity is 4, initial is 10. So 4 minus 10, so that is 71 into 6, that is, we are taking the mod, so no need of having the sign. So I can say impulse, if you calculate this, you will get 71 into 6 is approx 426. Converting into two significant figures, I will write it like 430. That is the unit, you can say Newton second or kg meter per second, but you should write in the SI unit, that is 430 Newton second is the answer. Now define impulse in terms of force and time. Yes, impulse is defined in terms of force and time as it is the product of force and time, that is impulse is equals to force into time. That is the definition of impulse. Okay. Now the second part of B. The athlete takes 1.2 seconds to slow down from this speed. It is given. It is taking. Calculate the average resultant force applied to the athlete as she slows down. Now you can solve this by the two methods. So method 1 is like, we know that resultant force or the average resultant force is equals to mass into acceleration, and the acceleration we have already calculated for this athlete in the first part and the mass is 71 and the athlete has the acceleration of 15. So by calculating this, if you calculate, you will get around acceleration we got. Okay, acceleration we have not calculated. That was the that was of the first part. Okay, sorry, first question. Acceleration we can easily calculate by calculating the final minus initial, and that too we have to take the mod. So 4 minus 10 upon time is 1.2. That is your acceleration, and the acceleration comes out to be 4 minus that is 6 upon 1.2, that is 60 upon 12, which is 5. So you get 71 into 5, which is equals to 355 Newton. And the other method for what we have written right now, impulse equals to force into time. So force will be equals to impulse divided by time. So F equals to impulse, we have calculated 430 divided by time, that is 1.2. So if we calculate 430 divided by 1.2, let us calculate in the calculator I have with me. You can also calculate 430 divided by 1.2 is 358.33. Look, the answers are different in both because of we have taken this as the rounding off of 426. So that is the reason. Also, if you round it off up to two significant figure, it will be 360 Newton and it will be also 360 Newton. So the answer is 360 Newton. That is the second method and that is the first method. You can apply any of the method, you will get the same answer by converting into two significant figure. Now calculating the C part, calculate the force required to give a mass 71 kg and acceleration of 6.4. So directly we have force equals to mass into acceleration. Mass is 71, acceleration is 6.4. If you calculate this, you will get the value 454.4 Newton. By converting it into two significant figure, I can easily write 450 Newton. So that is the end of the second question. Now moving on to the third question. This figure shows a model of a wind turbine used to demonstrate the use of wind energy to generate electricity. The wind is blowing towards the model as shown. This is the direction of the wind and the blades of the turbine are rotating in the circular area swept by the turbine blade, denoted by the dash line. A voltmeter and ammeter is mentioned here. Now question first, the mass of air passing through the circular area swept by the turbine blades each second is 7.5 kg. For example, each second the 7.5 kg of mass is passing through this wind turbine. Find out the speed of the air if the kinetic energy passes through the circular area each second is 240 joule. So in this question we have to calculate the speed, and we know that kinetic energy is equals to half mv square. Now each second the kinetic energy is 240 joule and half mass is each second is 7.5 kg into v square. So v square is nothing but 240 into 2 divided by 7.5. So if you calculate v square, you will get 64 and the v will be equals to 8. That is 8 meter per second is the answer for the speed. So here we have uses the kinetic energy formula to find out the speed of the air. Second part, the kinetic energy of air drives the generator. State the input power of the air passing through the turbine blades. Now for the input power, if I calculate, we know that power is what? From the chapter of work energy, power is what? That is energy dissipated per unit time. So energy we know, which is 240 joule is the kinetic energy each second. This is the amount of energy. Look at the last part. The kinetic energy passes area each second is 240 joules. So the time is 1. So I will get 240 watt, that is joule per second is the unit for power. Okay. Now the B part, the output current of the generator is 2 ampere. The output potential difference is 11 volt. Calculate the output power. Now for the output power, in terms of electricity, we have learned that power is equals to V into I, that is potential difference, into current, that is 22 watt. So 22 watt is the answer for the output power. Now calculating the efficiency. Efficiency, we know that efficiency is what? Efficiency is output power upon input power, and in terms of percentage we have to multiply it with 100. So if I put the values here, 22 is the output power, 240 is the input power into 100. So if you multiply it and calculate, you will get 9.166 and so 7. So rounding off to two significant figure, we will write 9.2% is the efficiency. Now the C part, calculate the volume of air passing through the circular area swept out by the turbine blade each second. Volume we have to calculate, density is given to us. So density is equals to what? Mass upon volume. So I can say volume is equals to mass upon density. So mass each second, the mass is 7.5 kg and the density is 1.3. So if I calculate, it will be 5.769. Rounding off to the two significant figure, I can write 5.8 meter cube is the unit of volume. So here we have solved the question number 3. Now question number 4. Now the question number 4, define the specific latent heat of fusion of a substance. So specific latent heat, the definition is what? It is defined as the amount of thermal energy, or you can say the heat required to change 1 kg of substance from its solid phase to liquid phase, because it is asking for the latent heat of fusion. So the fusion word denotes that it is converting from solid to liquid, and if it is vaporization, then we can say it is asking for liquid to gas or the steam phase. So that is the definition. It is easy, you can remember it. Okay, now the B part. Here is an important question. Small pieces of ice at 0 degree centigrade are added to 0.35 kg of water. The initial temperature of the water is given to us as 24.5 degree centigrade. The temperature of the water decreases to 0 degree centigrade when we added these small pieces of ice. Now in the question it is saying the water loses 35,000 joule of thermal energy as it cools. The heat is lost by the water so that it gets cool and become at 0 degree. All the ice added to the water melt, that is also mentioned in the question. Specific latent heat of the ice is given to you. You have to calculate the specific heat capacity of water. Now for specific heat capacity of water, we have the formula for E equals to mc delta T, where E is the energy losses or the gain. Here the water is decreasing its temperature, so the energy is losses, and the energy losses by the water is given to us. Mass of water is also given to us. C, that is the heat capacity of water, we have to calculate, and delta T is the difference of the temperature. The initial temperature was 24.5 degree and it decreases to 0 degree. So delta T is also given to us. So by rearranging, C is equals to E upon m into delta T. Now just putting up the values, E is 35,000, m is 0.35 into delta T, that is 24.5 minus 0, that is nothing but the 24.5 only. So if you calculate this, you will get the answer C in terms of 1.06. Let us check once again. 30, you can check it in your calculator also. 35,000 divided by 0.35 divided by 24.5. So it comes out to be around 4081.632. That is the answer, but rounding off to the two significant figure, I can write it like 4100 joule per kg degree centigrade. So the answer is 4100 joule per kg degree centigrade. Okay. Now the mass of the ice added to the water. Now in the question it is saying small pieces of ice is added and at the end all the ice added to the water melts. So this water loses energy. So the same amount of energy is gained by the ice so that it converted into water, or you can say all the ice added to the water melts. Okay. So here what we will do, we will use the latent heat formula, that is E equals to m into L. L is the latent heat of fusion of the ice which is given to us in the question, that is 3.3 into 10 raised to power 5 joule per kg, and E is nothing but 35,000, that is the loss of the water, and which is given by which, the ice only. Okay, so 35,000 into mass we have to calculate, latent heat is 3.3 into 10 raised to power 5. So by calculating this, mass comes out to be 1.06 kg. Converting into two significant figure is 1.1 kg. So the answer is 1.1 kg of, sorry, it is having 0.16, not 1.1, 0.106 kg. So rounding it off, you will get 0.11 kg. So this much amount of ice is added to the water. So we have solved question number 4. Now question number 5. Complete the sentence with the word, describe the main processes of thermal energy transfer in each case. Okay. A man goes for a walk on a cold day. He touches a metal gate which removes thermal energy from his hand by which method? We have three methods: conduction, convection and radiation. These are the three processes of thermal energy transfer. Now if a man goes for a walk on a cold day, he touches the metal gate. When he touches the metal gate, there are which conduction takes place, the energy is transferred by the conduction, because the actual movement, the particles are vibrating, or you can say the heat is transferred from his hand to the metal gate. He holds the side of a cup containing a hot drink. His hand gains thermal energy by, this is also due to the conduction, because the particles are vibrating and transferring the heat energy from hotter region or the higher temperature to lower temperature, that is colder region. Some farm workers have light a fire. The man warms his hand by the side of the fire, his hand gain thermal energy by. This is because of the radiation. The heat is coming in the form of electromagnetic wave to the man. So these are the three words which you have to fill it for the mean process of thermal energy transfer. Now B part, describe in terms the particle the transfer of thermal energy through metal of the gate after transfer from the man's hand. You have to define it in terms of particle after transfer from the man's hand, not for the man's hand. You have to take it after the man hand, that is the metal of the gate, how heat is transferred in the metal. In terms of particle you have to describe it, because many of the students didn't get the answer what they are supposed to write. So please read the question in terms of particle you have to define. So if I want to say it in the terms of particle, I can say the particle of metal gate that is the free electron move or vibrate and transfer energy to colder region of metal gate, because metal is having free electrons, so that electron will gain energy and move or vibrate and transfer energy to the colder region of the metal gate. Okay, now this shows a car on a sunny day in a hot country. This is the windscreen, this is the object A. The object labeled A is placed inside the windscreen. It is used by the owner of the car to reduce the temperature rise of the air in the car. Ring the most suitable material for the outer surface of the object A. We are talking about the outer surface of the object A. Explain your choice. You have to give the explanation why you have chosen that particular. So there are 4 types of metal: dull black, dull white, shiny black, shiny white. So we know that black is a good absorber and the emitter, so we not use the black. Remaining 2 options, dull white and shiny white. Dull white will not reflect the heat, it will somehow it will absorb because it is dull. But the shiny white, what will do, white is not a good absorber or emitter, as well as shiny surface will reflect all the sun rays coming to the windscreen. So the best, or the you can say the most suitable is white, shiny white, and explanation we have given as it is a good reflector and a bad absorber, will reflect, or you can say will reduce the temperature rise of the air in the car. Okay, because of bad absorber and good reflector. Okay, fine. Now the question number 6. This shows crest of a water wave moving from left to right. This is left to right. This is the crest of a water wave shown to us. This is the harbor wall. This is the end point A. Draw 3 more crests to the right of point A. Here we have to, this is the right. We have to draw 3 more waves after point A. So now look, the harbor comes to end after the point A. So now the wave will get diffract and will somehow like this. These are the 3 crests, because it will have some diffraction after the point A, so it will be like this, not a straight line. So we have drawn. Now second part, state the name of the wave, that is nothing but the diffraction only. Diffraction is the process that occurs when we are moving from left to right or after the point A. Okay. Now the B part. This shows the crest of a wave, another wave moving from left to right in a different part of the harbor. This wave moves from deep water to the shallow water. This is the boundary line between the deep water and the shallow water. The crest of the wave are shown to us. Draw an arrow to show the direction of the movement of the wave after it has passed to the shallow water. Now we know that here the crest of the wave are shown to us, and this is in the shallow water. Draw an arrow to show the direction. Right now it is moving in this direction. When it comes to the shallow water, due to change in the medium, the wave direction will also change. So it will be in the direction perpendicular to the wave shown to us. For example, this will be the direction of the wave. If I draw, this will be the direction of the wave, that is 90 degree to the crest shown to us. Okay. State the name of the process that occurs as the water passes into the shallow water, that is refraction is taking place. Due to change in the medium, the wave changes its direction. Okay. Now the third part, whether each of the properties of the wave increases, decreases or stays the same as the wave passes into the shallow water. Now if the wave is passing through the shallow water, wavelength, frequency and speed, we know that wave equation, speed is equals to lambda into frequency, or frequency remains the same, that is v upon lambda. If the frequency, we know that frequency of an wave does not change when it changes its medium, so this is stays the same. Okay, always remember, frequency remain constant, it does not change, whether we are talking about the light or the water wave. Now the wavelength and the speed. Now look at this fraction. If this is constant, it means that this overall fraction will remain constant. If one is increasing, other will also increase with the same amount, then only the fraction will remain constant. If one is decreasing, then other will also decrease. So now if it is increasing or decreasing depending upon the wave is passing from deep water to the shallow water, and the question, the diagram 6.2, it is moving from deep water to the shallow water. So the wavelength and the speed both will decrease because it is moving from shallow, it is moving to shallow water. The speed will decrease because shallow water will have, you can say, more medium or the higher denser medium as compared to deep water. So the wavelength and the speed both will get decrease. Okay, now the question number 7. 7.1 shows a converging lens and the image I formed when an object is placed to the left of the lens. This is the left of the lens. The principal focus are labeled as A and B, and the center of the lens is labeled C. This is the C, that is the optical center. Now on the figure 7.1, draw two rays to locate the position of the object. Draw the object and label it O. Now look, if I look, I am not having the ruler with me, but you are having your ruler at the examination. What you are supposed to do, you have to measure this distance between the optical center and the principal focus. The same distance you have to make it for the center of curvature. So I am making the center of curvature here, like, let us mark this as C1, then similarly the C2 will be here. Now we can clearly mention that the image is forming beyond C1 or after C1. So the object in this case should be placed between the center of curvature C2 and A. So the object should lie between the principal focus and the center of curvature, then only the image will form at this point. So if I draw image anywhere between this point, I should draw like hit here. Let us say this is my object O or object O. Now for the rays, we know the rules. If I draw a ray parallel to the principal axis, then after refraction it will pass through the principal focus. Okay, it will pass through the principal wait, because I am not having the ruler with me, you can easily draw with your pen and pencil. Here I have to draw like this straight line. It is difficult for me to draw a straight line here. You can draw it easily. Now I will expand this. It will take some time for me. Okay, let us draw like this. Okay, fine. So somewhat like this is you also have to draw the arrows. This is the one line I have drawn. Another you can draw from the optical center. It will, without any deviation, it will pass and it will meet at that point. So I am trying to draw the straight line. Which should pass through the center of curvature. Okay, it is difficult for me to draw, but it should pass from the center of curvature. Okay, because I have some limitations here. Okay, fine, no problem. So these are the two rays which you have to pass, and ring all the following distance that are equal to the focal length. Yes, the focal length is A to C and C to B. So A to C and C to B are the focal length of the lens. Okay, now this green light passing through a triangular glass block, this is a green light. Okay, red light enters the triangular block in this figure along the same path. This is the same path as the green light. Draw the path of the red light within the triangular glass block. Okay, if I have to draw the red light, we know that when a white light passes, this is the spectrum we got, violet here and red here, that is VIBGYOR, and red is above the green, so it will deviate less and will be like this. So that will be the red light. Okay, similarly, why this will be the red light? The reason being, red light is having the longer wavelength. So the longer wavelength means it will deviate less than the green light, which is having a more wavelength than the red light. So being the more the wavelength, or you can say longer the wavelength, less the refraction or the bending. So red wavelength is greater than green wavelength. So that is the reason for this diagram. Similarly, red light enters in this next part, green light passing. This is also the green light, same. This is the green light. Draw the red light. Draw the path. Look at the first. Draw the path of red light within the rectangular glass block. That will be the same. If I talk, that will also bend somewhat less because of the same reason as above mentioned. Now after leaving also we have to draw. After leaving also it will bend like this. So that will be the answer. Simpler one. Okay, reason being the same. Now the next question, question number 8. This shows a electricity circuit, 12 volt supply voltage, 3 ohm resistor, lamp, 2 ohm resistor and a wire having 6 ohm of length, 2 meter, and an ammeter is connected. Calculate the reading in the ammeter. If I want to calculate the reading in the ammeter, so by using the Ohm's law I can easily say V equals to IR, or I will be equals to V by R. So V is 12, R total if I want to calculate, that is nothing but 3 plus 2 plus 6 because they all are connected in series. So 11 ohm will be the total resistance. So 12 upon 11 is 1.09 ampere. Rounding off to two significant figure is 1.1 ampere. Simpler one. Okay. Now in the next part, the figure shows the circuit with a different connection. Now the connection is something different now. To the resistor wire and an added resistor. Added resistor is this. The length xy of the whole resistance wire is 2 meter. Xy. The length xy of the whole resistance wire is 2 meter. The contact is made at Q, where the distance xq is 0.6 meter. Calculate the resistance of the circuit. Now I want to calculate the total resistance of the circuit. Now this is the resistance that we have to be known, and these two are connected in parallel, then are these two connected in series. So first of all I have to calculate the resistance of this dash dash circuit. So let us say this is the total Rp. So we know that when resistance are connected in parallel, 1 upon Rp is equals to 1 upon 1.5 plus 1 upon resistance Xq. So for resistance Xq, we have the information given to us that the complete 2 meter wire has a resistance of 6 ohm. Okay, so the complete 2 meter, I can say the complete 2 meter wire has a resistance of 6 ohm. So 1 meter will have, by linear formula, 6 divided by 2. So for 0.6 meter I will have 6 by 2 into 0.6, that is 3 into 0.6, that is 1.8. So 1.8 ohm is the resistance of 0.6 meter of Xq. So 1.5 plus 1.8, so that is nothing but 15, 10 plus 10 by 18, that is 2 by 3 plus 2 by, or you can say 2 by, this will be, you can write it like this, 5 by 9. So you will get the value of this resistance as 9, 6 plus 5. So you will get the resistance of this is wait for a while. Okay, let me check. 5 3 5 2 2 9 2 5. Okay, so LCM is 9, so 3 2, 6 9 plus 1 5, that is 1. Okay, Yes, correct. So Rp will be equals to 9 upon 11. Or I am doing something wrong. It is 1.8. So 1.8 is, okay, that is right. So 9.11, 9 by 11 is the ohm. Now we have to calculate the total resistance. So R total will be equals to 9 by 11 plus 2 ohm plus 3 ohm. So which is equals to 9 plus 22 plus 33 divided by 11. So if I calculate this, 9 plus 22 plus 33 divided by 11, it comes out to be 5.81 ohm. So rounding off to two significant figure, the answer is 5.8 ohm. So look, this is of 4 marks. This is the calculation. You can do it in the calci, but I have done it with my own. So this is 5.8 ohm is the answer for the total resistance of this circuit. These two are in series and these are in parallel. The main part is you have to calculate the resistance of xq, not of complete xy you have to take, because the contact is with xq. So that is the only resistance that will be in order to calculate. Now the next question, question number 9. Name this logic gate. This is OR and that is the NOT, that is the and that is with the NOT. So this is an AND gate. Okay, let us do with the blue color. Okay, state the name of the logic gate with the truth table on 9.1. So if I give the input, if the input is 0, I will getting the output as 1, and if input is 1, I am getting the output as 0. So that is the invert, and the invert is done by the NOT gate. That is the simple truth table. Okay, now this is a digital circuit shown to us with the truth table that we have to complete it. Now A and B are the inputs given to this gate, which is the OR gate. This is AND gate, this is an AND gate. Okay, so first you have to mention all the types of gate that is used here. Okay, so let us consider just hold for a second. Okay, sorry. Yeah, A and B are the input, C and D is the input for this AND gate. Okay, now we have to complete the truth table. Now let us take A, we can take as I am getting C, that is the output of OR gate. If I am getting 1, so it will be like start with 1 and 1. So I am getting C as 1. Okay, if C is 1, D is 1, and E I will get 0, because this is an AND gate. If it is AND gate, 1 1 will give me 1, but if it is with a NOT, so an AND gate becomes inverting it 0. Similarly here also 1 0 I will get 1. So if 1 is here, 0 is here, I will get 0 if it is AND gate, and an AND I will get 1. Now let us interchange 0 and 1. Again I will get 1 because of OR gate. Let us write OR and an AND gate. You can compare it, this OR as the parallel switch and as the series switch. Okay, you can also check with the D also, D input, because 1 1 we get 1 because of AND gate, because these are also A, sorry, this is B and this is A. So you can check with these also. A is 1, B is 1, so D will get 1, yes. If A is 1, B is 0, I will get 0, yes. If this is 0, this is 1, again I will get 0. 0 0 here also the answer is 0 and 0, so I will get OR also 0 and output, that is D, also 0. Okay, for E and 1 0, again I will get 1 because of and 0 0, again 1. So this will be the truth table for the table 9.2. It is very important. Look, it is of 4 marks. So you should know what is the each gate has the features of input and output. For remembering, it is easy for you to understand that OR is like a parallel. If any one of the switch is closed, it give output as 1, that is the high, that current will flow. I tell my student to remember in this way. And means series, both the switch should be closed, that is 1 1, then only will get output 1, otherwise all 0. And not is just the opposite. Whatever you are getting in the AND, just reverse it in the case of and or an OR. Okay, so that is the way of doing this in the simpler manner. Okay, now the 10th question. This is a simplified top view of a flat coil and alternating current in the coil. Describe the magnetic effect of this alternating current. So I can say, because of having the alternating current, a magnetic field associated with the coil changes continuously therefore so an induced EMF produce at the end of the coil. That is magnetic flux. We can say magnetic flux is changing, or magnetic field associated with the coil is changing continuously due to alternating current. So an induced EMF will be produced at the end of the coil, which will result in the flow of current, induced current. Okay, now what I have done is shows a pan placed above the coil. The base of the made of steel. The base of this pan is made up of the steel. This is made up of steel. State what quantity is induced in the base of the pan. At the base of the pan, what quantity is induced? We can say due to change in the magnetic flux, an EMF is induced, or you can say the potential difference is induced. Both are the same answer. The pan contains water. State and explain the effect of the quantity induced in part B. State and explain on the temperature of the water in the pan. Okay, so we can say state and explain the effect of the quantity. We can say EMF is induced, so a current will start flowing that is nothing but the eddy current. These are known as the eddy current, and due to heating effect of current, there will be, due to heating effect of current, thermal energy will be transferred to the pan, resulting in the temperature rise of the water. So due to heating effect of the current, thermal energy is transferred to the pan, resulting in increasing the temperature of water in the pan. So that is the effect. Explain the effect. We explain the effect, that is the temperature rise in the water, and state which is because of EMF induced. So that is the answer supposed to be written down. Okay, now the last question of the series. Isotope hydrogen 1 has proton 1. We know nucleon number is 1. Two isotopes of helium 3 and 4. Helium 3 has proton 2 and nucleon number 3. Helium 4 has nucleon number 4. So complete the neutral atoms of these isotopes of helium. Number of neutrons in helium 3. So if the helium 3 is having 2 proton, it is given helium 3 is having 2 proton. So the number of neutron will be 3 minus 2, that is 1. And for helium 4, we know that number of proton in the helium is 2, so nucleon number is 4, so the number of neutron is 2, because neutron number is equals to nucleon, because nucleon is the combination of proton and neutron, so neutron will be nucleon minus proton. So number of electron, if I say it is electrically neutral, I can say, so the number of electrons in the helium is equals to number of proton, and the number of proton in helium 3 is 2, and it will be same in helium 4. Mass compared to neutral atom of hydrogen 1. If the hydrogen is having a mass of 1, then the helium will have the mass of 3 because of 3 nucleon number, and the helium 4 will have a mass of 4. Okay, now the last part, an experiment takes place in a laboratory shielded from all background radiation. It is shielded from all background radiation, it is mentioned here in this part. A sample of radioactive material is wrapped in aluminum foil of thickness this. A detector of ionizing radiation placed 1 centimeter of the foil records a reading. A piece of aluminum of thickness 5 mm is placed between the detector and the foil. The detector readings drops to 0. State and explain any type of radiation passing through the aluminum foil. We have to we have to state and explain the radiation passing through the aluminum foil. Okay, now look, we know that there are 3 types of radiation, that is alpha, beta and gamma. Now if you read the question very carefully, it is saying a piece of aluminum of thickness 5 mm is placed between the detector and the foil. Let us say that this is my radioactive material. Okay, it is wrapped, let us say it is wrapped with a very thin aluminum foil of thickness 0.1 mm, and a detector is placed here. This is the detector, let us say this is the detector. 1 centimeter from the foil records the reading. Now what I have done, a piece of aluminum of thickness 5 mm is placed between the detector and the foil. This is the foil, this is the detector. I have placed an aluminum piece, this is the aluminum piece of 5 mm thickness. Now the readings drops to 0. If there was no aluminum piece, then the detector is records the reading, but when I place the aluminum, there is drops to 0. Now this is what happening here, that you have to state and explain any type of radiation. So we know that alpha, beta and alpha cannot pass through the aluminum foil of thickness 0.1 mm, so the detector will not take, so alpha will not be there. If we talk about gamma, gamma will cross this also and will gives the reading in the detector, but it is saying it is 0. So the radiation that is nothing but the beta radiation. Beta radiation is emitting from the radioactive material because as it has low penetrating power which can penetrate aluminium foil of 0.1 mm thickness but unable to pass, or you can say unable to penetrate, a aluminium piece of 5 mm thickness. So that is the explanation. But although or you can say whereas alpha can be stopped by 0.1 mm aluminium foil and gamma will penetrate all the obstacle because of high penetrating power. So that is the properties of alpha, beta and gamma. The question is based on that only. So read the question carefully and then state and explain the type of radiation. So I hope all the questions that we have discussed in this session is been clear to you. Okay, so for PDF you can request me the email. Rest all you can check it the marking scheme as well. For any improvement or any suggestion or the feedback, you can comment in the chat box or the comment box. Thank you. Goodbye.